I am here with Greg Blakely. We're going to be interviewing for the TV theme battle bracket. It's been going on for about 3 weeks now. We're just going to be finishing off round two and heading into round three in the next week. So like we would do with all our guests, we like to ask them some great questions. Now, the reason why we pulled Greg in is because we have a lot of Niagara influence, a lot of people from Niagara region getting their input. Greg's originally from Niagara, but hasn't been here in about 22 to 23 years, now in Ottawa. So we're going to see what Parliament Hill is talking about. You know, I know they're talking about COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, all important movements, but is there an underling of TV theme battle bracket that's happening on Twitter right now? And so he's a musician. He plays piano averagely, drums averagely, and guitar averagely. So we're happy to have him on. He's been working on his own theme song for Anne of Green Gables, PEIPI, which is the Prince Edward Island Potato Investigator Unit. That's a kind of a mix between Anne of Green Gables and CSI. I'm very excited about it. Any word from CBC, CTV, if that show is going to get moving along?
Well, I can't say I've had any calls returned, but I'm holding out hope.
Yeah, but Anne of Green Gables.
When I have a good idea, I'll stick with it.
Anne of Green Gables as a potato investigator, I think, would have a great theme song, which I know you're currently working on, right?
It's mostly bassoon.
Yeah.
A bit of zither. It's experimental. It's very avant-garde.
And you're struggling shaving it down to a cool 6 minutes, right? It's just too much content.
With shaving just in general during kind of these COVID days, I'll tell you that. I did shower for you. Not for you. It's a bit weird, but I did shower.
Okay, I appreciate that. And you know what? You can shower and shave for me anytime you'd like.
Fantastic.
So we're going to look at the week that was. So, we had some extremely tight battles this week. We had some blowouts, a good mix. But what are some takeaways that you have? So let me just recap the week.
Yeah, let's go through it.
And we're going to share screen. We're going to go to the bracket here. Make sure everyone's on board. I'm also my own producer here too, right? So
the technology that you're throwing at this thing is really second to none. ESPN is they got nothing on you.
They got nothing. All right. So we started off the week with Drew Carey versus Baywatch, the first installment of Hasselhoff. It was a double Hasselhoff week.
Yep.
It didn't pan out well for him. And then we had Golden Girls versus Family Ties, a beating like we have not seen in quite some time.
Well, it's my girls. You got to expect that.
Yeah, it's like hockey, Team Canada versus Team Italy in a hockey match. That's what that match was. And, I guess it does make Sophia, she was a lot of stories from Sicily, right? So I guess she would be pulling for Team Italy there.
You got B. Arthur. She's pretty much like Sidney Crosby.
Yeah. And then things tightened up on Wednesday. We had Growing Pains and Knight Rider. Knight Rider lost by 2 points there, 51-49. And then we moved on to Thursday, Star Trek: The Next Generation versus DuckTales. This is where things got heated. Let's just tap in on that one. Now, DuckTales versus, we had the nerds, the Trekkies, if you will, versus, your cartoon Comic-Con types. So it's really a nerd-on-nerd violence that we hear so much about in the media.
It really is. And you have those two constituencies for those genres, and the Venn diagram, they don't overlap at all. So they're just there's really butting heads. I'm not surprised. We're lucky that it didn't come to blows. That the fact that this is all on Twitter has kept the physical fighting largely out of it.
The one meme that a lot of people kept on, or a GIF, I don't know what the kids are calling it, is Uncle Scrooge jumping into his safe full of gold coins and him basically swimming at it. But I don't want to seem like Mythbusters, but I'm pretty sure that's at least a fractured skull or a broken neck to dive into a pile of gold coins. Yeah,
I've tried it. It's not pretty. You're talking at least an ER visit, if not worse. That Scrooge McDuck, he was recently catapulted back into relevance by Liz Warren. Remember when she was doing that interview about, was it with Colbert, I think, about the different billionaires, and Scrooge McDuck came up in there. Put him back on the radar, and then here he is again, coming back in the TV theme bracket. It's amazing.
Scrooge McDuck, making the Scrooge franchise even less likable.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
Yeah,
is
I'm surprised the next generation didn't just steamroll that one. I don't know. To me, DuckTales, I can't. If I reach for it in my head, I can't grab that song. I can't. I'd have to hear it. You know what I mean? It's for me. It's not one of the ones that you just have it on autoplay in your head, like Seinfeld or something like that, where you can always hear it if you need to.
yeah, we are seeing some battles of different generations. We saw that. We'll fast forward to yesterday. MASH, which had its start in the 70s, and versus Miami Vice. So, MASH did exactly what its name entails, and Don Johnson is no more on the TV battle bracket.
So for me, MASH is a heavyweight in this. I think you have them seated as high as, is it 5? I mean,
Yeah,
That is Painless is a classic tune. I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up in the Final Four. But then I need to know something more about the demographics of who's really voting and paying attention. I'm thinking of, okay, if I try to imagine Kelly's Twitter followers, like how old are they, because I feel like MASH was a little bit into the older crowd, but this is one of those real tunes. Like some of the tunes in this are just like, oh, remember this crazy show we used to watch when we were 12 years old? And it's nostalgic and you think of it. And then some of the songs on here are like for real. And that's one of them. So I would like to see that one go all the way to, let's say, the Final Four.
I think if you break down our demographic, it's an easy balance or even balance with male, female, but we got to be around 33 to 50. So that's a pretty big range, right? Mm-hmm. Where, I've had some people reach out where they're like, the only one I really know is Fresh Prince, and they're on the younger demographic and they're your early 30s, right? But those are outliers for sure. And then cycling back to Friday, we had another highly contested Law and Order versus Three's Company. And I remember you side messaged me. You hit me in the DMs and you said, this is like right out, as soon as I posted it, you're like, this is going to be battle roar. So let's talk a little bit about this one.
Law and Order for me is one of the heavyweights. In fact, wasn't it kind of the genesis for this whole thing, or was one of those core tunes that we had talked about that really led this whole thing to be created in the first place? Because that
Absolutely.
song has so much weight to it. Like it's really like stuck in our minds for years. And so, but Three's Company, I just had had that in like that. Come on, knock on my door. There's like that first line that you always remember that. And actually seeing the theme song and watching the video of it for the first time in, I don't know, 25 years or something recently. It's pretty classic. It's a whole mood. It's a whole swingers scene and just like a weird 70s kind of John Ritter crashes his bike into the beach sand in the beginning and laughs at himself. And it's just like, those two shows and songs couldn't be more different. Mm-hmm. I don't know what was going to happen when they met.
I think that John Ritter could use some definitely a little bit more discreet ways of checking out women via the bicycle. Yes. And making sure that he stays on the trail. But I'm sure there's lots of learning lessons that you can pull from Three's Company that really make an impact in 2020. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think if we rewatch that series, there's more than a few lessons there.
Yeah, definitely not a lot of people coming out of quarantine saying, just binge some Three's Company, totally crushed it.
Yeah.
But I think they had, 5 or 6 seasons? It's definitely binge level, yeah. But that was a tight one. So 55-45 was a win at Law & Order. But, if you go through the replies on that one, when I posted the results, some angry people over the loss of Three's Company. But you know what? That's what it's going to be about. This is going to get ugly, and as we move along here.
And if I'm reading this bracket right, are we saying we're likely to end up with Law and Order against Night Court this early? That should be the finals for me. I mean, come on. How are these songs meeting this early in the tournament? It's just one of those things. It happens. It happens in NCAA March Madness. That's just that. There's nothing we can do about some of these epic matchups early on, but that is a legal tilt, comedy versus drama.
But, like I say, no matter what round they meet, to be the best, you got to beat the best, right? Ric Flair.
That's right.
Yeah. One of your favorite wrestlers, I'm assuming, right?
I don't know why everybody goes around quoting Vince Lombardi and Yogi Berra when there's all these Ric Flair quotes there, this low-hanging fruit. that you can just grab.
Yeah, and if you don't have a Ric Flair one, then you can use a Steve Austin one. Like, like why not, right?
Steve Austin is back in the news, eh? In the past week or so.
Yeah.
He's really dispelling the stereotype. People thought they had him pigeonholed, and then he comes back at you like, actually, no, I really care about social justice, and maybe I'll knock you out.
I love it. I can't get enough of it. One of
No.
my favorite stories that involves some friends of ours, Billy Topolinsky, Scott McLeod, where I told you that they both own the WrestleMania box set, like a box of all the WrestleManias. And then that hurt you. I remember like you were like wheezing, hunched over that, we have friends in our social circle that have the WrestleMania box set. And I know if they watch this, they're going to be defending that to all heck. But
Yeah, it's not really. I'm not laughing as a criticism. I just think it's so amazing that you're thinking, yeah, I know someone that has this box set. Like I could borrow it if I needed to, but I'm not comfortable not having my own because like what if I wake up in the middle of the night on a Wednesday and I need it? I need to know that I have it for myself.
okay, yeah, that's
It's
important.
Yeah.
But is this a cry that you work for the federal government that you could possibly do a team building activity where you watch at least 4 to 6 WrestleManias back to back and debrief each one and see how your team can build from that?
That'd be good. Actually, be really good training for like a junior policy analyst. Like, I want you to watch WrestleMania 11 and summarize it in 5 bullet points.
I think I like it.
All the key considerations. What did the final match turn on? What were the key points that we need to take away? Next steps.
Next steps. Speaking of next steps, we already talked about Night Court. Now, people like to hear about our interviewees' families and how these TV themes are involved. But can you tell me how you added a remix, an a cappella remix of the Night Court theme song when your 2 girls were a little bit younger?
Yeah. So people who are parents and are familiar with, diaper changing, if that's a recent memory for you, can relate. When you go to put on the nighttime diaper on your, baby or your 1-year-old.
It's a long-term commitment.
It's a long-term commitment. If they're a good sleeper, kid might be in there for 10 hours. You need to make sure that this diaper is airtight, like submarine. And so you might want to, double stuff that sucker and make sure that it's there for the long haul. So in our family, we call that night butt. So when it's, let's get that diaper on you for nighttime, we just talked about night butt. And the more times that came up in my head, that Night Court theme just started playing. And, the kids on the change table, you got to entertain them before they start kicking their legs and all hell breaks loose. So, singing a song to the kid, an a cappella, multi-instrumental version of the Night Court theme song, rebranded as Night Butt. What kid doesn't want to hear that from their parent,
Yes.
And we still do it. Like my kids are, 5 and 7, but like you still got to put your PJs on. So I see no reason why we can't refer to pajamas as Night Butt and sing this song. Because it just makes everyone happy. You just hear that bass at the beginning. Doom, 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 doom. And it's just kids' faces light up. It's amazing. I
love it. Night Butt. Dry sheets, grooving parents, happy kids. What else could you ask for?
It's amazing.
So what we're going to do real quick here is, we haven't done this with the other guests, but you really wanted to break down some of these tunes, right? So I queued up a few. I have 2 losers, Knight Rider, Growing Pains, and then 2 winners, MASH and Golden Girls. So we're just going to play a little clip, and then we can talk a little bit about the jam itself and some emotions that brings up for you. So we're going to get started with Knight Rider here.
Starts out strong.
Knight Rider, a shadowy flight into the dangerous world of a man who does not exist.
Okay, let me just put that. Knight Industries, just hiring employees that do not exist. Now, yeah. I'm not a CRA, I don't work for Canadian Revenue, but that's got to be super difficult to claim at the end of the day. And
yeah, he's going to need some sort of superhero accountant to make that all seem legit. I don't know how that works exactly, but
Yeah, but most importantly is that the jam. Like, what are your thoughts right off the hop?
I think, well, first of all, the visuals in that opening are it's better than the music. Like that way that car comes at you across these like salt flats or something. It's got kind of like a Mad Max vibe to it, mixed with like Tron. You kind of put those two together. It's not as like dark and gritty realism, terrifying nightmare as Mad Max, but it's something like that. And then
Now, the Mad Max Tron crossover, that was the theme for your ninth birthday, right?
I believe, and my wedding as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people criticize, but it turned out okay. Yeah, that it has this kind of techno optimism, like there's something about this car. Like, sure, Hasselhoff is, I guess, an ethical dude, but there's something about this car that's gonna save us all.
Yeah, Knight Rider and A-Team were both like underground vigilantes that would fight for the good, like almost a true Robin Hood story. And to combine those together in the 80s when I lived on Camrose, so this is like grade 3, 4 for me. We had an Avondale 2 blocks away. Friday night, I knew that A-Team, Knight Rider were going to be back to back. We would walk. I'd be able to pick out a chocolate bar and a can of pop, and then we would track back, and I would watch those two shows. I don't know what my sister was up to, but I'd like to thank Brenda Jones, who's on Twitter. Give her a follow for all those great chocolate bars. And yeah, and now we're gonna switch over to Growing Pains. So totally different buzz. No Mad Max, no Tron, just thick on the thick, Alan Thick.
Yeah. Yeah. Classic TV theme, heartwarming. That spoon flip, still epic trick shot.
Gonna jump in here. Joanne Kearns, underrated. Looking back, an attractive young lady.
Effortless. So
Effortless.
natural. Yeah.
And then a great freeze frame here. The song sounds right, but not as right wing as what Kirk Cameron has become as an adult. Real shocking.
It taints the whole show in retrospect. It's just so weird for me to see him here.
Didn't he see the trends? Like if you were an 80s child star or teen star, you went the other direction. You became like an out of control partier. He's just like, no, here I go. I'm going in the other direction.
Yeah, he was trying to balance it out.
And then to have another sister in an iconic show, Full House, Candace Cameron, right? They were related. Yeah. And then now she's married to another sibling powerhouse, the Burrays.
Oh.
He's married to one. I forget the Burray, but yeah. So that is just sibling combos all around. A family reunion between the Camerons and the Burrays. Could you imagine?
Wow. Playing a little shinny out in the backyard.
I definitely think that Valerie Bure, that's who she's married to. Pavel's, Valerie had a good career, but Pavel's obviously was second to none. So what are your thoughts with that song? It is like a warm hug on a cold day. It's very nice.
That to me is one of those songs where it's really a TV theme. Like Perfect Strangers was like that. Some of these like heartwarming kind of comedy shows are like that, where if you just took the song and just said, here's a song that some band pushed out in the 80s, you'd be like, this is a little weird. It's not, I'm not sure this is really like a standalone tune. But when you get it with the montage from the show and the message of the song and how it relates to the show and everything, it's perfect. So it depends how you want to look at this. I tend to look at this bracket as like, let's think about each of these songs just as a tune on its own and try to forget about how much we liked the show or the memories that it brought for us, just which is the best tunes. But when you see some of these themes, it's so hard to separate the music from everything else that comes with it.
But what I really like about this jam, we're going to go right to the end here, is the little cling at the end. You got Thick just on his own. Family left him abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is, if you don't like that, you don't have a heartbeat. I'm just worried about you just in general.
How many keyboard effects do you think that the person cycled through before they land? This is the one, like on the synthesizer, like number 93, like that's the effect that we're using for that pling at the end.
Huge ending there. We're going straight into MASH here.
Oh yeah. Oh, the graphic design. That on the titling, the font, perfect, perfection. Is this clarinet?
Tough to say.
It really is. That's my guess.
So obviously, I'm going to pause this in a bit. I just have a couple questions here about just the layout, logistics. Okay, here we go. Like, I know they're in a mountainous terrain, you know, and it's not an ideal location, but is this the best way they could transfer the injured? Like, it feels like the helicopter pad, the hospital, and my Lord, they got troops on the top of the hood of the Jeep. This is the best they could do. Are you concerned?
I'm a little concerned. I mean, are you thinking that the helipad, you know, side by side with the surgery tent, maybe makes more sense?
You know, you need
and then you're introducing a risk of a helicopter crash, making things worse. So I don't know. I'm not in the military, but
you're not in the military, so we'll leave that one as it is. So, but as you can see, a totally different, you know, mood, very like artistically approached. But what are some of your thoughts on this song?
I think the ending, if we let it run the last, it's really the way it's a good punch at the end. Really, really gets you, right?
Yeah.
It comes in, it has a kind of a slow burn. You think you're getting into like a 5, 6, 10-minute tune, and then suddenly it's like, no, we hit you with a big ending, and you're into the episode.
And then I think this is one of the shows where I would want to be in on the pitch, because the show is pretty ridiculous. Like, when you lay it out, like, hey, we got Korean War, like, okay, I think I'm with you so far. And we also have, like, it's a medic thing, so people are coming in injured and dying. But there's hijinks that put out. There's a guy who dresses up as a woman trying to get kicked out of the army. There's two surgeons that are wacky and they're up to no good and a Playboy adventure. And then someone's just like, yeah, I'll sign off on that. That's the show. It's an emotional roller coaster. Ends up being one of the biggest shows of our, like, over the last 50 years. But what is your takeaways on the plot?
I know the pitch. I mean, we're gonna do a comedy about the surgery clinic in Warzone. Okay, tell me more. I don't get it, but it is interesting. It is one of those shows that can do comedy and drama, and flip back and forth effortlessly between the two. That's amazing. You saw like some of the other 80s and 90s shows, like Roseanne could do that. You know, Fresh Prince did that a few times. The Cosbys, you know, where they'll put some real heavy material on you and hit you with like a dramatic ending, and you're like, whoa, okay, I see what you just did there.
And I think that's a perfect segue, not practice as well, but just a quick shout out to Matt Dazel, who did some extra research on Twitter. He was the hot take from today. And Johnny Mandel, not Johnny Manziel, but Johnny Mandel is a composer, jazz musician. He actually wrote that theme song for MASH. So it's a real, you know, all these writers our composers are pretty advanced, but it was interesting. It was good research on that. But another show that was ahead of its time on tackling, you know, homosexuality, you know, different divorce, all that sort of stuff, was definitely Golden Girls. So we're going to let this jam. I'm not even going to interrupt it. Like, it's just going to be here we go skis. Okay.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant.
Right here.
And if you threw a party,
Oh,
you invited everyone you knew. You would see the biggest gift would be
The strings where they go hard at the end.
yeah.
Now,
That's how you do a TV theme right there.
that boom, 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 like, it's just like everyone's sparked. Like, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're 20 or you're 70. You're sparked.
Do you use that for pump up music before hockey games in WNHL, or would that get people too amped up and then it would just be all kinds of boarding and cross checking?
I'm encouraging when the NHL gets back up to its regular run is to play that after a fight, a good fist fight. I think that would be I think everybody, and then the whole place would be feeling good. And I think we need things like that to unite us, right?
Yeah, a moment of healing.
Yeah. But, if you break down the lyrics, like, so are you just throwing a party for yourself for no reason and then you expect people to bring gifts? Like, that's an undertone that I don't think too many people, like, they don't really establish. Is it Christmas? Is it a birthday? Is it a big event, a retirement party?
Seems like kind of a gift grab.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah, not to, shed any shade on our Golden Girls here, but, they completely destroyed family ties. It wasn't a big competition.
Could be that's just a cultural thing. Like in 1980s in Miami suburbs, you're going over to someone's house for a party, you're bringing a gift. That's just how it was.
Golden Girls is in the next round. It won't be this week, but the week after. It's going against Star Trek. So I got some bad news for Picard, but the Enterprise is going to get roughed up.
Yeah, I think it's in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. So the captain's log, I think in a couple of weeks is going to have a real stern ending, real shocking ending. All right. So real quick, going to stop the share here. What are you thinking for Final Four before we wrap up this interview?
All right, so I thought about this. First you want to go with your heart. You want to say, here's the tunes that I like the best, and then you go, well, okay, I don't know. Judging with some of the upsets we've seen and how much, like, I don't know, Fresh Prince, let's say, crushed the opposition by, you're thinking, okay, there a lot of people, I think, and everyone's doing it, you're voting for the show a little bit as well, and for the memory of that show when you're younger. And so kind of I have that in mind. I'm thinking Fresh Prince is going all the way to the Final Four. I'm thinking same thing for Seinfeld. It's just so memorable. Everybody knows it. That the slap bass that's not even a bass is pretty hard to deny.
But how he changes it for different episodes is the insanity part. Like that video that I shared, yeah.
Yes, interweave it between the comedy bits there. And when I saw that every time he redoes it, it just blew my mind.
That's you get two more for your Final Four. Sorry to interrupt there.
I'm saying Fresh Prince, Seinfeld. I'm thinking MASH, and I personally want to see Night Court in there. Although I don't know what's going to happen if it's going to get past Law and Order.
Yeah, Law and Order is going to be tough. Looking for the week ahead. Saved by the Bell versus Fresh Prince. Wow. Like, there's going to be some things said to different people via Twitter, which is totally different from every day on Twitter, where it's usually a very polite and accepting place where people are just open for different ideas and listening and understanding and actually doing a lot of reading. That's the Twitter I know, unless you're following different people.
Place of healing.
Place of healing. Now, you had some questions about the structure and how we could develop this bracket if we decided to do it again.
Well, I just wanted to hear a little bit your thinking. Like, first of all, was there a core set of tunes that spawned this whole thing? It was because we were talking about there's 3 or 4 or 5 songs that were like, okay, you know what? We're gonna have to do this bracket because we have these songs to discuss and we need to know which one is the champ.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it earlier, is that one video of that guy that made the TikTok video of like fake playing this music, and then he comes out with the flute. Like, that really got things going. And then people were talking about Miami Vice and all the sort of, like, in other side conversations I was having. And then I was like, I'm having a lot of conversation with different people about TV themes. We're all desperate for sports. We're all desperate for competition. And so that's why I was like, let's put it together. So the nomination on one Saturday, a 24-hour span, I said, send me your nomination. What are some songs that need to be in this bracket? And I reached out to some other people that we have, on the side and said, what do you think? Obviously, Alina, my wife, she's a heavy Golden Girls fan. So she's feeling that one. And then the more mentions it got, like MASH got tons. That's why it kind of ranked up to the 5th spot. And if there was any ties, then I took some creative liberty, to kind of like, okay, this
Okay,
show
so,
is,
yeah, so the seeding was partly based on how many times people mentioned the same one,
yeah,
and then partly just your own kind of gut instinct around like what was really like.
yeah. In retrospect, we did have some omissions, but everything has got some omissions, right? So
Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, one person's Golden Girls is another person's Kids in the Hall theme. Or
yeah,
like there were, yeah, it's so hard. A couple of, I like the idea they came up. I think it was Scotty Smith that said, well, what about the theme song from Cops? How would if we had that in here, like given the mood of the times, like, does that get 0 votes and get crushed in the first round just to send a message? Or what happens with that? That would have been
Inner Circle wrote that song, and they also wrote, "Girl, I'm gonna make you sweat, sweat till you can't sweat no more."
really, oh
Yeah.
yeah.
What they got 2 solid jams. Yeah. And I know that their song was used on a show that may have, I don't know, reinforced some other stereotypes about people that are poor or different races and stuff like that. But the song, is pretty solid. But moving on from that is, so yeah, looking ahead, there was some omissions, but I think that overall it's good. Could you imagine being a political party and having like 20 different prospects for a leader, and then you just come out with the same leader who's been around and he's also like super old? Could you imagine if that happened in real life?
It's almost inconceivable.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Especially when people are desperate for your kind of new progressive vision and some new blood.
All right. Well, Greg, I'd like to thank, if you can give us your Twitter handle, and then for people tuning in, you can gain some followers. So, you're pretty active on the old Twitter, and definitely like calling out Mark Zuckerberg for the, magic man that he is.
If you have a hate on for Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, follow me at Greggor Blakely.
Yeah. If you like fancy office libraries, hating on Mark Zuckerberg, or want to talk about Tron and Mad Max themed weddings, you've got yourself an amazing Twitter
Yeah.
follow.
Slide into my DMs.
Slide into it and never leave. All right. I'd like to thanks again. So make sure you tune in. I actually self-promote, but Kojiko, this Wednesday, 9:30, I'm going to be on the Romeo Report, the interview I did a couple weeks ago to talk about it. So I don't think you get Niagara Kojiko out there in Ottawa, but, I'll let you know if it's online.
I'll raise up an aerial tall enough to bring it in. I'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah. All right. TV theme battle bracket. Thanks a lot, Greg Blakely. We'll talk to you soon and have a great day.